All right, let's talk about change. It's this massive, invisible force that's constantly reshaping your career, the companies you work for, and, well, pretty much everything. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see what's really going on. Let's get right into it. You ever have that moment, you wake up, open an app you use every day, and suddenly the button you always press is gone? Or maybe you get to work and your boss announces, hey everyone, we're using a brand new system for everything, starting today. It feels so random, and honestly, it can be kind of frustrating. But what if I told you it's not random at all? Yeah, there's a name for this whole thing: organizational change. And look, here's why you should care. Being the person who understands this, who can see it coming and knows how to navigate it, that is a total game changer for your career, whether you're an intern or the CEO. Okay, so first things first, we have to completely reframe how we think about this. Change isn't some special occasion that happens every once in a while. Nope. It's the default setting. It's the air we breathe in the modern world. And this right here, this gets to the absolute core of the challenge every single leader is facing. Think of it like a balancing act. On one hand, you need stability. You need systems that work, that are reliable, that keep the business running smoothly. But on the other hand, the world out there is messy and unpredictable. If you're too stable, too rigid, you become a dinosaur. The truly great organizations, they don't just survive this tension, they thrive in it. So, if change is happening all the time, what's actually causing it? What's pulling the strings? Well, it really boils down to three main forces. Three big drivers that are constantly pushing companies to evolve. First up, the big one you've probably guessed: technology. This is almost always an external force. A company doesn't get to vote on whether a new AI model gets released. It just happens, and they have to react. This creates what they call a burning platform. You know, the idea that the ground you're standing on is on fire. You can't stay put. You have to jump to the new thing, or you're going to go down with the old one. A great example is Shopify. When the pandemic forced everyone home, the technology for remote work was there. But Shopify didn't just allow people to work from home, they went all in. They completely rebuilt their company to be digital by default, creating brand new tools and new rules. That wasn't just a minor adjustment, that was a deep, fundamental shift, all driven by technology. Okay, the second driver is growth. Now, this one's different. Unlike technology, which often just happens to a company, growth is usually a deliberate internal choice. This is the C-suite getting in a room and saying, we've decided to get bigger. We are going to acquire our competitor, or we're launching in Europe next year. It's planned, it's strategic, and it comes from the top. And we can see this with Shopify too. Remember when millions of small businesses rushed to get online during the pandemic? Shopify's growth went through the roof. And their choice to support that massive wave of new customers forced huge changes inside the company. All of a sudden, they had to hire thousands of new people for roles like customer success and product support just to keep up. And that brings us to our third driver. This one is the most powerful and by far the hardest one to manage: culture. We're talking about the unwritten rules, the shared stories, the vibe of a place. You've probably heard that old saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it's true. You can have the most brilliant plan in the world, but if it goes against the grain of the company culture, it is dead on arrival. I mean, look at Microsoft. For decades, they had this reputation for a really competitive, sharp-elbowed culture. Everyone was trying to be the smartest person in the room, a know-it-all culture. Their CEO, Satya Nadella, realized this was killing innovation. So his number one job became shifting that deep-seated culture from know-it-all to learn-it-all. He made it about curiosity and listening, and that one cultural change unlocked pretty much all the success that followed. Okay, so we've got the why figured out. Technology, growth, culture, those are the drivers. But what about the how? When a leader needs to make a change happen, how do they actually do it? Well, this is where things get really interesting, because there are two completely different playbooks leaders can use. In one corner, you have John Kotter from Harvard. He sees change as a structured, top-down project. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, with clear steps to follow. And in the other corner, you have Henry Mintzberg from McGill. He says, nope, that's not how it works. He argues real change is messy. It's a continuous learning process that bubbles up from the people on the front lines. So, the big question is a leader an architect with a perfect blueprint, or a gardener tending to a complex ecosystem? So, Kotter's model is like a recipe. You follow the steps in order.
First, you have to create a sense of urgency. Make everybody feel like staying put is not an option. Then you build a strong team to lead the charge. You create a very clear vision for the future, and you talk about it constantly. From there, your job is to clear roadblocks, and this is key, create some quick, visible wins to build momentum and get people on board. It's super methodical, and it's great for big, defined projects.
But then Mintzberg comes along with a totally different take. He says the most important changes aren't the ones you plan in a boardroom. They emerge. They're discovered on the fly as your teams on the ground experiment, learn, and adapt to what's actually happening. In this world, a leader's job isn't to hand down a plan from on high. It's to create an environment where it's safe for people to try new things and figure out what works.
So who's right? The architect or the gardener? Kotter or Mintzberg? Well, let's stop talking theory and see how this plays out in the real world. And what better place to look than an industry we all interact with every week? The grocery store.
Okay, this table shows you everything. Let's look at Loblaw. When they bought Shoppers Drug Mart for over $12 billion, that was a textbook Kotter-style planned change, a massive top-down strategic project. And it was a huge success. But now, look at their recent struggles with public anger over food prices. That's a messy, cultural, emergent problem. There is no 8-step plan to fix that. You have to listen, adapt, and learn. Now check out Tesco in the UK. They used a very planned, Kotter-like turnaround plan to save the company from crisis. But to fight off discount grocers like Aldi and Lidl, they had to switch playbooks. They had to go full Mintzberg, learning from their cashiers and stockers and adapting their stores one by one. The best leaders know which playbook to pull out and when.
So let's bring this all home. After all of this, the theories, the examples, what does it actually mean for you? What do you need to know to not just survive, but to lead in a world that is always, always changing? It really comes down to 3 big principles. First, change isn't a switch you just flip on or off. It's more like a dial. A great leader knows when to dial it up for a big planned project and when to dial it way down to let the team experiment and learn. Second, always remember, culture is the operating system of your organization. Your new strategy, that's just an app. And if it's not compatible with the OS, it's gonna crash every single time. And finally, and this might be the most important one of all, if you remember one thing from our time together today, please make it this. When people push back on a change, our gut reaction is to see them as the problem, as an obstacle to be overcome. That is a huge mistake. Resistance isn't just people being difficult. Resistance is data. It's a flashing red light telling you that maybe the plan has a flaw, or the communication was unclear, or you're accidentally stepping on a value that people hold dear. A manager tries to power through resistance. A true leader gets curious about it. And all this brings us to one final massive question for the future. As AI starts to drive change faster and more relentlessly than any human team ever could, what kind of leader is going to be most valuable? Will we need the master architect, the person with the perfect 8-step blueprint? Or will the future belong to the patient gardener, the one who focuses on creating a culture so healthy and resilient it can adapt and learn and evolve all on its own? Something for you to think about. Thanks so much for tuning in.